Hello everyone, welcome to our virtual lunch and learn. Today we'll be hearing from Bryan Signey. Bryan is based in Sydney and is one of our lead engineers here at DiUS. Today Bryan will be sharing his experience implementing chatbots and discuss why it's so important to get your chatbot out of the wild as soon as possible. He'll then deep dive into the lessons learned, strategies and recommended approaches from building nibby. Nibby is a chatbot helping nibby members with their everyday inquiries. And it is in the wild. Following his talk, he'll answer any questions you may have. And so without further ado, I'll hand over to Bryan. Bryan, all yours now.
Thank you for that, Leanne. Can everybody see my slide? Okay.
Yes,
good.
We can. All good.
All good. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Leanne, for that wonderful introduction. My name is Bryan Signey, and welcome to this presentation regarding a time-to-market acceleration model for delivering chatbots. As Leanne mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about the lessons learned, strategies, and approach that we at DiUS here have used in implementing chatbots and allowed us to get the chatbots out to market as soon as possible. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the meat of things. If you'd like to post any questions, we're using Slido. So just go onto their website, that's sli.do, enter the event number that's shown on the screen, and just pop your questions in there. At the end of this presentation, we'll address the questions that you have. So I first got involved with chatbots when I became the lead engineer on a chatbot project for nibby. So this chatbot, which was aptly named nibby. This was a very exciting project for me to get involved in, because back then, which was back 2017, chatbots powered by natural language processing was the new technology. A lot of companies were interested in it, and very few had successful implementation of it. So nibby was launched back in late 2017, and it meant nibby was the first Australian health insurer to introduce artificial intelligence services to assist customers with their health insurance inquiries. nibby was designed to help and augment nibby's existing live chat customer agents. And it does this through two ways. It looks to handle simple and repeatable tasks, providing a self-service feature. So for example, updating a customer's contact details, such as address, emails, and passwords. It also triages all requests coming through the chat channel. So any non-self-service requests, nibby would then gather customer information, such as name, residency, member status, and then determine the relevant live chat team to handle that request. And also then pass that user and all the information it gathered to that live agent. So what's the impact that nibby has had over the business? So here are some stats that nibby has released on nibby's 2-year anniversary last year regarding the impact that nibby has had. So over the first 2 years, nibby has had over 80,000 member interactions, of which 85 of them were successful. So what does this mean? It means that out of all the requests that have gone through the chat channel, nibby was able to successfully recognize what the user was asking for, basically what the user's intent was, and was able to resolve those issues. The other 15%, although nibby was not able to recognize or resolve the issue, nibby would gather general information about the user and seamlessly transition this customer to a general live chat agent to resolve that customer's issues. So over 2 years, nibby has saved over 2,500 hours of customer consulting handling time. What this means actually is that the average handling time that consultants did when they were handling customer requests had been greatly reduced due to nibby's assistance. So nibby has had such an impact for nibby that now they want to expand its capabilities. They're investing more into this technology. So they plan to eventually get nibby to handle over 1 million member interactions. And they're looking at it through 3 ways. So firstly, they want to expand nibby's capability across nibby group operations. They've got a particular focus on their international operations, especially around New Zealand. Nibby has some self-service feature, and nibby plans to expand this and also have the self-service feature available 24/7. And lately, there's this new concept now of an omni-channel online customer service. So what nibby is looking into is integrate Lex, or their chatbot, nibby, with AWS Connect. So regardless of whether a customer goes through a telephone channel or through chat, nibby will be somewhere along the lines handling that request. So I'd like now to share with you the lessons that we learned when we were implementing nibby and subsequently used in other chatbot projects. So the first lesson we learned is cloud is an enabler. So strictly speaking, this is really more about getting your chatbot out into the market as quickly as possible. With the chatbot as a service provided by by cloud providers such as AWS with Lex, Louise with Azure, Microsoft Azure, and Dialogflow with Google Cloud. This using this service allows development team to bootstrap or kickstart their chatbot implementation. So all their focus is now just creating the chatbot and not getting the chatbot trained to understand natural languages, as it is already trained for that. So again, I'd like to iterate that this is more concerned about getting the chatbot out in the market as quickly as possible. Lesson 2, cross-functional team is paramount. So what this really means is that you want to have a diverse team working intimately and collaboratively as possible. So for us over at, for the nibby chat project with nibby, we had a team of 2 developers, a UX designer, and nibby customer agent, one of their live chat agent, working closely together to form not only the chat flow for nibby, but what nibby will be able to service and do. So lesson 3 is about building a chatbot and getting it out there. So you want to build, measure, learn, and improve with analytics. So chatbot is not like any other channels. If you think about your normal web application or Windows application, mobile applications, they essentially use visual aid to get their message across or get the users to interact with them. Chatbot is slightly different because you're only dealing with the language. So it's basically the front door to your business for your customer service. Think of it as if like they were a concierge or a receptionist. So it's really crucial to get the language, the chat flow, and its capability really right. The best way for the best way to reduce your risk, and it's something that we implemented with nibby, is we did a simple pilot release, which only provides a chat option for one repetitive, high volume but simple task. We monitored that with various reports and analytics, and I'll get to those reports and analytics a little later on. But we use the results of the chatbot's interaction, or nibby's interaction with customers, to further feed back into nibby and greatly improve it and build more complexity, build more functionality through it. And finally, lesson 4. This is really related to lesson 3. You cannot approach the lessons we mentioned in lesson 3 unless you have this capability, which is to deploy quickly and deploy often. As I mentioned during our work with nibby, when we finally let it out in the wild, let it start interacting with customers, we monitored it closely. For example, looking at highlighted utterances that we may have missed, chat flow that doesn't quite work. We acted upon this, and like a daily example for us is to update a missed utterances, improve existing chat flow, and then looked at it in the morning, build on it, and have it deployed in the afternoon. So every day we were deploying almost constantly. So how did we bring this all together? Well, we handled nibby through 3 phases. We've got first the discovery and validate phase. So this is a short phase in which we looked at how chatbot will be able to not only serve the problems and serve the requests that customers were sending through, but also how the chatbot would be best serve the customer agents. At the end of this phase, we had what we called a proof of concept, a small pilot, which helped us quickly validate our theories. The second phase is obviously design and build. This is where we're building our chatbots and our various metrics and then analytic tools, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. And finally, we had the launch and learn. So as I mentioned, this is where we're letting the chatbot interact with our customers, letting us monitor and greatly improve our chatbot. So for all this, the one thing I'd like to highlight is using this kind of phase, we had a proof of concept to production and getting it out nibby in less than 6 weeks. So let's get into how we built nibby. So nib didn't really create nibby kind of straight away. Their story or their journey towards nibby actually began 2 years earlier. And this is back in 2015. So nib wanted to recognize that they need to drive innovation. So with the support of DiUS, they made significant investments in their people, their processes, and technology to develop a cloud platform. So by 2017, nib has become quite good at migrating and hosting their applications in the cloud. So with this foundation in place, nib began to look at higher functions where they can leverage their cloud capabilities. Kind of what other customer problems or business problems can we tackle to leverage this strong cloud foundation? And one of the things that they wanted to experiment with was AI, machine learning. And a business opportunity came up with regards to their live chat. So as I mentioned earlier, live chat, with their live chat customer service, nib handles thousands, tens of thousands of requests each year. but majority of this request needed a specialist customer service person to resolve. So for example, if you're looking to join NIB, then the sales team needs to handle those requests. If you're an international student or an international worker within NIB, with the health insurance through NIB, then the international customer service team needed to handle these requests. Hospital requests, whether you're making a claim or just trying to find out information about the hospital insurance, then that would need to be handled by the hospital service team. But looking through all this, there were some inefficiencies that were identified. For example, if you first come in through the chat channel, you will get a live chat agent, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was the right agent to handle your information. And so you had to go through this. Let me forward you to the right person to handle this for you. And so it wasn't a great experience for both the customer service agent and the customer. So this is when nibby was born. So nibby, we created nibby using AWS Lex. So it was used because it was an existing service in AWS, and NIB was already using AWS, was in the AWS cloud platform. And so with using Lex, as I mentioned before, it kickstart their chatbot implementation. Serverless architecture was also used since Lex integrates with it quite well. And NIB already were capable of launching and hosting applications in the cloud, including several serverless applications. The team we had was a very lean team. So we had 2 engineers and a UX person working closely with NIB live chat agents. So as I mentioned earlier, nibby was designed to triage all requests coming through the chat channel. It's there to identify and provide self-service capabilities. And also for complex requests, then nibby would just gather this information and pass it on to the relevant chat team. So now let's just go take a deeper dive at the various phases that I mentioned earlier. So the first phase is the discovery and validate phase. So firstly, we needed to know whether nibby is even able to solve customer problems and assist customer agents into solving these and resolving these issues. So within the discovery phase, the whole aim is what we wanted to get into was to have a prototype that we can then use to test against users and validate whether nibby can handle the issues that's coming through this chat channel. And we did this through various exercises. So the first one is narrowing the domain. So the most effective way to layer in capabilities for the chatbot is to narrow its domain or narrow its scope. So the less a chatbot does, the fewer opportunities there are for the conversations to go off the rails and more likely to get the customers the answers that they need. And this is where working closely with NIB customer agents was beneficial. So they knew what sort of requests come through this chat channel. And so using their knowledge, we were able to identify two features that we believe nibby would be able to handle. So one was a low value, highly repetitive customer request. In this case, which is changing customer details, right? Which nibby can handle as part of a self-service capability. The other feature was a high value but slightly more complex request. which in this case, identifying new customers and directing them to the sales team. So this request can't be handled by self-service. And if you think about, when you're trying to find information about health insurance product that's right for you, that's a really complex conversation. So what nibby would do is gather the information about this person and their intention, which is, joining NIB, and send that off to the NIB sales team. I'd just like to point out that this exercise, narrowing the domain, is really important whether you are at the start of your chatbot journey or if you already have an existing chatbot. You want to make sure that the intents or the capability of the chatbots are narrow in scope and do not overlap with other intents. If you have these overlapping intents happening, then the chatbot's not going to perform as admirably as you want. We had one instance, I remember with nibby, where we had one intent that was too general. And over time, that slowly started taking over, even with with user requests that it shouldn't have handled. So just keep that in mind when you're designing your intent in your chatbot. So now that we've got our scope, it's time to start writing up the script. So this is the part where you start thinking about how you expect the conversation to flow. And it's very handy to have a UX designer working closely with you here. So we know from earlier that that live chat agents are helpful in narrowing the domain. The UX designer now has to look at and work closely with developers to work out what this chat flow looks like. So think things through as, how do we convey to the user that they're talking to a chatbot? Convey to the user what the chatbot can do. It's not just good going, hey, I'm your chatbot, what can I do for you? Because then the customers can be sprouting off any sort of requests, and then the chatbot will go, I don't understand what you're doing. So it's really important to have upfront the capability of your chatbot. In regards to conversation flow, you need to think things through, such as when to branch a conversation, when to have open inputs versus forcing the user to select options, when to show results and what those results should include, when to involve live agents and how you want this interaction to ideally resolve itself. While you're building the script, it's worth noting to build a personality for your chatbot. I know that even if this interface is kind of bot-based, making it sound human and embodying the traits that you want your brand to have will give a positive experience to your customers. So with NIB in the nibby project, a lot of the language that we used, the tones that we had for nibby, was already embodied by NIB's live agents. So they already have a language and tone that all their agents adhere to when engaging with customers. And we use that to power the personality of nibby. So the final exercise is user testing. Test. So what for us with nibby, what we did is we built a nibby prototype. So there was no actions in that. It was just entirely the chat dialogue. And we took that out to our customers and tested it out on them. And we believe that before you launch a chatbot, you do this. Just based on our experience, our first iteration of our chat dialogue, we actually had just kind of like a 5% success rate. with our users. So what we thought was a good conversation flow didn't turn out well on our first iteration. So it was beneficial finding that out, revising the chat flow, and getting that a bit more useful for our customers. So next phase is designing and building your chatbot, mainly building your chatbot. So I'm not going to go into detail on how to build the chatbot. So regardless of what chatbot technology you're using, so whether it's Lex, Louise, Dialogflow, or any of the other chatbots services out there, they all basically adhere to the same concepts, 3 concepts. So first is, the user's intent. So this is basically what the user wants to do. The utterances that are linked to this to the intents. So utterances are what the chatbot uses to learn, kind of what trigger, how to best identify what the user intents are. And finally, the response. So what actions that the chatbot needs to do to help to eventually resolve this issue, and how to show that to the clients. What I do want to focus on is 3 things that will really help you in not only delivering a chatbot, but greatly improving it over time. Sorry, not over time. As your chatbot interacts more and more with your customers. So the first one relates to having to be able to get your chatbot out quickly as possible. And this is building a flexible foundation to be able to deploy quickly and often. So for us over at nibby, we have a CI/CD strategy. We used CloudFormation to be able to deploy our nibby out into the wild. We also had a branching strategy. So by using the CloudFormation and DevOps type of strategy, we're able to simultaneously develop different branches of our different features of our nibby, test that, and then merge it later on and deploy that onto production. So as you know, and I've mentioned it a lot of times now, getting your chatbot out and letting it interact is the only way to improve your chatbot. But in order for that to improve, and we need to monitor and have metrics around all these interactions. So then you as a developer, as a business, can learn how the users are interacting with your chatbot, and then feed that back into it to greatly improve it. So a few things for us, for example, over at nibby, a few of the kind of metrics and reports we had included, intent usage, trying to monitor that we are the intents that we created and put through nibby were being used by the customers. Missed utterances. So especially when you launch your chatbot initially, or any new intents, you're not going to be able to cover all the different ways that that your customer will phrase a request. So inevitably, there's going to be some missed utterances. So you want to monitor that. And from based on experience, it's not enough to just see the phrase that were missed, because there's no context behind it. You'll need to have a look at the whole chat conversation for that user to get the context behind their requests. Incorrect intent matching. This was an interesting report. So before before nibby actioned a lot of our intents, it had a confirmation question to make sure that the intent that it matched the user is what the user or the customer was wanting to do. And for the most part, it was spot on, but there was a small percentage where it didn't match correctly. So it was handy. It was worth with this report. It was worth deeper diving in why the intents got mismatched and greatly improve nibby. Finally, user satisfaction. So we had a little questionnaire at the end, basically a thumbs up, thumbs down on how satisfied were the customers. And this was really handy because even though nibby was able to resolve their issue, were the customers satisfied with how it was handled, or was it not? So it's worth noting, especially the ones that weren't satisfied, and how we can greatly improve nibby. The final phase that we want to point out is error handling. So error handling is important for any type of application, but it's doubly important with your chatbot. So at any point in time, you will get errors. Like the most, excuse me, sorry. The most important, the most common one that will come will be misutterances. So at any point, the chatbot will go, or nibby in our one will say, well, I don't understand what you're doing. How do you handle that situation? Do you let the user rephrase it? How many attempts do you want the user to rephrase it before maybe shuffling them off, or before they get frustrated? One of the things actually, like one of the errors that caught us by surprise was around gathering a person's name. So for instance, for most part, when you ask the customer's name, a lot of them answered with just their first names, but there were some that put their full names. So John Smith is fine. nibby was able to handle it. But then when you get complicated or multiple names, say, John, Paul, George, Ringo, Beatles, Smith, nibby would throw up their hands and go, well, I don't understand what you're trying to say. So how do you handle those errors? Very important. You don't want to leave your users to be just hanging going, I don't know, I don't understand, I don't understand. So, and finally, you've built your chatbot. Now it's time to let it out into the wild, let it out and interact with your customers. Remember, every interaction with a customer is an opportunity to improve your chatbot, and an opportunity you can update your chatbot daily and have it instantly available for the users. So with nibby, when we first went live with nibby after the first 2 weeks, nibby only had about a 25% success rate. What do we mean by that is that customers were still using this chat, but now it's being serviced by nibby. But nibby was only, when we first launched, nibby only had like 2 intents that it recognizes. So 25% of the requests that came through were the ones that nibby was able to recognize and successfully resolve. So over time, we kept a close watch over how nibby was interacting, fed it back utterances that it missed. What I mean, utterances that it missed for existing intents. Identified new chat flow that we believe nibby could service, and fed that back into nibby. So after 10 weeks after it's launched, we got that success rate up to 70%, and we're still greatly improving nibby. So where do we go with that? With chatbots are going. So as you know, chatbots really becoming more and more popular. So users, users are more and more would want a bigger on-demand service when they're interacting with businesses nowadays, right? A few things are coming out into the market. So, for example, omni-channel chats are coming through. So, with AWS, that's with AWS Connect integrating with Alexa and Lex. So, over time, it's not just, like you say, chat, not just through chat, but through telephone conversations, a chatbot could be servicing you there. When we first came out with nibby, nibby was chatbots were only able to handle like simple interactions, or simple requests. So it struggled with some complex sentences. For example, sentences that exhibit multiple intents. So allowing the chatbots to have more complex interaction, or handle more of these complex interactions, will feed into more of this demand from users. So chatbots really need to evolve by interacting with persons on the other end, with more human-like conversations, with more human-like feel. Being able to handle complex interactions, sentiments, that sort of thing. So by doing this, it will meet these growing expectations that users have when interacting with businesses through this channel. And that's it. Do we have any questions?
We sure do, Bryan. So the first question we've got is, what tool do you use to analyze a chat log after the initial deployment of the chatbot?
So with nibby and other chatbot projects, all you really ever have is the chat conversation. So what we did for nibby was to have this chat conversation available to a reporting tool. In this case, I can't remember the tool at the moment. I'm drawing a blank, but we were using nibby's existing reporting and analytics tool, and we built queries on that to build our reports to highlight the things that we wanted highlighted.
Sounds good, Bryan. When you think of that, we can add it to the DiUS Slack community, in case anyone wants to know.
Yeah.
Next question. What tools or approaches do you recommend for testing and deploying chatbots?
So for us, we were using, with nibby, we were using BuildKite, which was their existing deployment tool. But we were also taking advantage, I mentioned earlier, on CloudFormation scripts. So that allowed us to build our chatbot, configure our intents, the utterances, but also build on all those serverless functions that the chatbot or nibby would be using, all into the one script. So when we released a branch of nibby, or released nibby into production, we're making sure that all the serverless functions and any of the other service that it needs were all released in the one. So yeah, we use BuildKite. I'm pretty sure whatever CI/CD tool that is available for you that you use to launch on your cloud would be handy.
Fantastic. Where are we at? Where are we on chatbots that can handle queries in multiple languages?
I believe Dialogflow in Google Cloud has multi-language capability. AWS Lex at the moment is English based, although there's an open source project that I'm playing around with, and mention that again in the QA because I haven't played around it since last year. But intercepts languages before it hits nibby, before it hits AWS Lex, and interprets it using an interpreting service. I'm not sure about Louise if it's got multi-language capability, but yeah, from those three services, that's what they are. Any others? We have one here from Matt. When there were incorrect intent matches or missed utterances that need fixing, how did you ensure other conversations flow didn't regress test? Yes. So we eventually built as part of our CI/CD strategy, we did build a automated tests to make sure that all the intents and chat flow conversation was still happening and had that running as well as part of our CI/CD build. So all it was getting a test version of the chatbot out into the cloud, getting that published, and then firing off sample utterances that we know that the chatbot will be able to handle, and watching back what it get and confirming that the chat flow was running fine.
Bryan, there's another couple of questions. Kirsty here. We just poor Erin just got kicked out of the call. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah,
yeah. So you've got a question from Tom here. He says, you talked a little bit about this already, but what's next for chatbots? Where's the edge at the moment?
The current trend in the market, especially with AWS, is the omni-channel chat. So that's allowing your typical phone customer service to be handled by chatbot. So that's the latest thing that's coming through. So you have this concept of whether you're going through a chat channel or going through a telephone support call. The chatbot, the underlying technology behind it will be a chatbot. In terms of the other things that's coming through for chatbots, so one thing that I've been interested in watching is Alexa. So they have, AWS has been really focused around Alexa in that they want it to handle more complex interactions. So they're giving it more context in terms of sentiment. So you've got the sentiment analysis with AWS Comprehend. So that allows you, one, to analyze a conversation based on whether there was positive tones or negative tones into it. Also, being able to port over from one domain and apply it to another domain. So if you think about long conversations, let's take, for example, nibby, where we're talking about a customer finding information about health insurance. So on our first iteration, that could just be, all right, here are the information for health insurance. But then if you want it to be more complex, how can we apply that and go and get your chatbot to recognize, hey, this person's trying to find out more about health insurance. Maybe they want to join. So after the end of that after giving that information to health insurance, chatbot could turn around and go, hey, do you want to join? Have another kind of conversation. So at the moment, it's very discrete tasks happening with intents. So it'd be interesting to see if they can go, okay, that's one intent gone. How can we apply and lead that person on to the next step? Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bryan. We have one more question that's come in.
Yep.
So how does an organisation get started if chatbots are on the radar? And are there any barriers or existing tech investments required?
For me, it's all about what are you trying to solve? What do you think the chatbot will do for you? So with NIB, for them, it was all about, hey, we've got inefficiencies in our conversations, in our chat conversations. How can we greatly tie in and get chatbot to tie in for that? So we know chatbots can do a few things for you. One, provide self-service capability. Two, maybe be able to handle conversations which just give general information. So one of the chatbots that we've done here at DiUS was for Red Cross, correct, Kirsty? That was Red Cross, right? And that was educating people about plasma donations, and eventually try and get more donors to donate plasma. You know, there was a chatbot for University of Melbourne, which is all about information, as I believe, on for students regarding the semester and their timetables. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if there's anybody else here that worked on that. So chatbots can do a few things.
Bryan, I was just going to say, it was actually for prospective students who might be interested in applying for courses.
Thanks, Mark. So
close though.
Yeah. So chatbots really can do several things for your business, and it's all about just identifying what it is that you're trying to do and what do you think the chatbot will be, how the chatbot will be able to help with you with that. That discovery phase is really good, because you can quickly build up a chatbot conversation. Like, we only had a 2-week discovery phase, and we built a prototype there and then got it out to the users and quickly verified, hey, yeah, the users will use this, are very interested in using this thing, and it was helpful for them. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bryan.
Thank you.
If anyone has any more questions, Bryan will be hosting a Slack chat on Thursday, so we'll email out a link to the Slack community to everyone following his talk. So Thursday at 10 a.m, and you can ask him any questions that you have, or just pop in and have a chat with him. So we'll send that through to you shortly. But thank you, Bryan, for your talk, and thank you everyone who's joined us.
Thank you, everyone.